Alrighty, so you want to know what legendary weapons to go for, which ones are trash, which ones are cheap, and which ones will get you an easy win. Well, I'm here to help you out a little bit by providing a little bit of insight on which ones are pretty good, which ones are bad, and you know, just it's going to be a tier list, okay? So, starting off, looks like we have the Artemis Bow. So, the thing about the Artemis Bow is it's garbage. It is not exactly cheap. The recipe requires 2 diamonds, a spyglass, which means you need to find a geode, you need like feathers, you need a whole bunch of expensive stuff that is like very luck based. And also it can do literally 0 damage. I have seen it do on a lightning strike hit 0 damage, which means I hate to do it, but the Artemis Bow is definitely landing itself in trash tier. It doesn't matter if the arrow's home or not. If they do 0 damage, then there's no point in it even existing. Okay, next up we have the Dragon Katana. Now this is probably we're going from the worst to one of the best legendary weapons that you can possibly get your hands on. The Dragon Katana is not that expensive. All you need is 2 obsidian, a netherite scrap, a diamond sword, and a fire charge. As long as you get a decent bastion run, you pretty much have the Dragon Katana. And in its current state, it gives you permanent speed 2, I believe, or maybe it might be speed 1, I'm not 100% sure. But that is like ridiculously overpowered in fights when you have speed and your opponent doesn't. You used to be able to enchant it. I don't think you can enchant it anymore, but you used to be able to enchant it to make it ridiculously OP. It's got the teleport charges, which means you can either be extremely aggressive or extremely passive with it. It supports both playstyles, and just overall does a lot of damage, and you get that speed too, so it's like, how can you not put it in easy win, right? It's so good. It's such a good legendary weapon. Alright, next up we have the Emerald Sword, which is one of the cheapest legendary weapons. That is something that's good about it. Basically, if you find a village, you can just get an Emerald Sword. The only really expensive part of it is the Diamond Sword. Its whole thing is every 32 emeralds that you put into it, it will gain a sharpness level. That seems okay, but you're going to be spending most of your time actually getting the materials to make the Emerald Sword, and so you're only going to end up having about maybe 5 minutes to get as many emeralds as you can. And you know, you gotta like make sure the other players in the lobby don't kill all the villagers, and getting 32 emeralds isn't exactly easy. That's like 2 stacks of logs, which is a couple of lumberjacks axes, and so it's very time consuming, and it's not great. It only gains 1 sharpness level, and it starts off at no sharpness levels. What ends up happening is you can sometimes, a short sword ends up being better, I think. I'm pretty sure it starts off at no sharpness levels, but yeah, so if a short sword has the potential to be better than it, then I can't unfortunately put it very high, so I'm going to put the Emerald Sword in Meh, because at least it does do damage, unlike the Artemis Bow. Alrighty, next up we have the Grimoire. Now the Grimoire is basically a god book. It'll give you a really good enchantment on pretty much anything that you can possibly think of. It's got pretty much everything. Just the only issue with it is very expensive. You need a trident, you need magma cream, you need diamond sword, a bow, you need a lot of stuff to get a Grimoire going. Unfortunately, it only has sharpness 2 on it, which is not great. Gonna be honest with you, a sharp 2 book is not really worth all of the stuff that you have to put into it, but it does have prot 4 on it, and that makes it pretty good, I think. And also just the versatility of it and its uniqueness, right? Like there's no other, I mean, Tim the Enchanter's kind of similar to it, but not really. It's a very unique legendary item, I guess, and yeah, that makes it pretty good, I think. So I'm gonna put it in the decent category. If you can afford it, I guess you can go for it. It will level you up pretty damn good. Alright, next up is the Lich Staff, and I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't know what this weapon does. I don't really know where to place it. It's pretty cheap from what I understand. It's like a couple diamonds, some ice, a candle, and from what I understand, it's pretty good, so I'm gonna just put it in a nice, safe, decent tier, just because I don't know how good it is, but it's not super expensive. It's like average price, so I'm just gonna let it chill in the decent tier. Alrighty, the Midas Sword. This weapon is iconic. This is like, when you think of a legendary weapon, you're thinking of the Midas Sword or the Sonic Crossbow. There's not really any other super iconic weapons going on here. So what the Midas Sword does is every time you get a kill, it has a 50% chance of leveling up its sharpness level. It supports a very, very aggressive playstyle, and it only really gets good after you have 3 or 4 kills. When it starts to get into those like sharp 3, sharp 4 range, then it starts to get really, really good. And it did recently experience a huge nerf, bringing the chance of leveling the sharpness up from 100% all the way down to 50%, which it's still a decent weapon to go for, and it's quite cheap. Chances are, if you found a notch apple, you're also going to be in the possession of 2 diamonds, and at that point it's pretty much just getting gold for, it's pretty much just getting 4 gold for a golden apple and quartz from the nether, which is pretty easy. And so the Midas Sword, I think, earns itself a nice comfortable spot in the pretty good tier. Alrighty, the Pufferfish Cannon. Now this is an interesting weapon because it's not exactly amazing. It's more of really, really annoying to play against. It doesn't do any damage. I mean, I guess it can do a little bit of damage, but most of the time you're not going to be using it for damage. You're going to be using it to slow down your opponents and, like, you know, trip them up and annoy them and stuff. Price-wise, it can get quite pricey. You need 2 diamonds, 2 iron, 2 pufferfish, and 2 TNT, or no, 1 TNT, which, the TNT is probably the most expensive part, just because it's the only one where it's luck-based. Basically, you either gotta get really lucky with creepers or find some sort of structure that has gunpowder in it. I'm gonna put the Pufferfish Cannon in decent, just because it doesn't really do a whole lot of damage. It's more of a support legendary weapon. Alright, next up we have the Mjolnir, and what this thing does is, if you use it as a melee weapon, or you can also throw it, it will strike lightning on your opponent, and it has an 8-second cooldown, and so it's pretty good. Just the only thing is that it is very, very luck dependent. Most games will not even have a chance of having a Mjolnir in them, just because of the lodestone that it requires. It requires a lodestone from a bastion. That's like the only place that you can get it. I'm gonna put the Mjolnir in the pretty good tier. It's not a guaranteed win necessarily, but it's pretty good, and if you do have the materials, I definitely recommend crafting it. And next up we have the Reaper Scythe. This is another one of those legendary weapons where it's not necessarily meant to do damage. It's more of a support thing, and so what it does is it's got a 22-second cooldown, and every time you smack someone with it, it will drain 10% of their health, which is about 4 damage, so like 2 hearts. It drains 2 hearts off of them, which is pretty good for 1 hit. And it gives those 2 hearts to you, so it's like a lifesteal. And it also transfers all positive effects from the player that you just attacked onto you. So it like basically steals some health from the opponent and steals the effects from your opponent and just gives it to you. Pretty good. However, it's one of those weapons where it's very luck based. You can't really depend on getting it every game because you need a geode, bones, and 2 player heads, I believe. But overall, the recipe isn't too bad. Like, once you do get a geode, there is a solid chance that you could get it. And it does some pretty good things. It's not bad. It's a solid option to go for. So pretty good tier. I'm gonna put the Reaper Scythe in the pretty good tier. Alrighty, next up we have the Sonic Crossbow. Now this one might be the most expensive legendary weapon out of pretty much all of them. The only ones that I could see being more expensive are the Grimoire, and I guess you could make an argument for like the Mjolnir or Midas Sword, the ones that require an RNG RNG item. Yeah, this one seems to be just across the board the most expensive. However, it is also the one that deals probably the most damage out of any of the legendary weapons. From what I've seen, the explosion and the knockback that this thing produces is pretty insane. It can do a hefty amount of damage. This thing is a very heavy hitter, but it's got a very long cooldown and it's super expensive. I'm going to put it in easy win. If you manage to acquire a sonic crossbow, you can very easily win the game. Alrighty, moving on to our final legendary, I guess, person. We have Tim the Enchanter. Now, Tim the Enchanter is solid, pretty good tier. And alright, that about wraps up my tier list. Let me know in the comments if you disagree with anything. There's probably some things that I'm overlooking here because I haven't used a lot of the legendary weapons, like the Lich Staff. I haven't even seen footage of. I don't even know if this actually exists in game. Yeah, if you enjoyed, please like the video. Feel free to subscribe if you want to, and I will see you in the next one. So, see you later.